What's up, everybody? Long time no see. Look, I appreciate you for coming out and hanging out with your boy. Look, we're gonna get into some color grading. I'm just gonna pretty much just kind of make myself available right now for anybody that's got any questions. This is what we do. Let me see here. Let me see here real quick. Let's see. See if I can make this. Got to get this thing coordinated so I can make sure I'm actually live. Come down here in this mode. Yeah, just trying to, like I say, just trying to make sure that we actually are live. Because it's saying 9 minutes ago, but wait a minute, here we go. This one over here. Yep, we are in fact live. Hey, what's up, everybody? I am. Um, hey, how you doing, Faith family? Faith family and football. Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm gonna try to look. I'm gonna try to set this. So I've got my iPad over here, and I actually have my got my MacBook, kind of put in a different little area. So I'm gonna try to watch this screen about as much as I can. You know. So I just wanted to make sure that I was actually live because I couldn't see anywhere. But hey, I'm glad to have you here. We're gonna just gonna kind of come in and do a few. Just do some color grade over a few random clips that I have in here that I shot, and just gonna answer any questions. So if you got any questions at all, feel free to ask away. Ask away. And I'll keep taking a gander over there at the chat. So again, like I say, if you have any questions, feel free to look. Hey, look. I tell you what, you know, I was always told that hey, God blesses us by the touching the hearts of other people. So look, if I can be, go ahead, fire those questions away. I'm just gonna kind of go ahead and start working on some of these edits. And like I said, I'll keep watching the chat over here and see what it look like. But I'll kind of, I like to go step by step. I don't like to take a lot of shortcuts to try to make the video fast. And at the same time, I had to just kind of put it out there that hey, this is one of those kinds of channels that hey, we take our time because everybody doesn't get it the same way. So you know, if you're a beginner and if you're new here to the channel, then welcome over here in the world of JCurtisMedia. We're gonna try to see if we can simplify a few things and have a good time with some of these edits. I'm not gonna take you, not gonna take up too much of your time, but I've just been really, 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 really busy. Been blessed to be busy, and so I hadn't done a live on here in a while. But we're kind of wrapping up football season here in Texas, so that takes up a lot of my time during the fall. But other than that, if my audio is good and my video is good, we about to be good on this edit. So um, here we go. So let me see. You want to create a YouTube channel doing study or film breakdown, man. I think that's awesome. Yeah, yeah. I think that would be real cool. That would be real cool. You could definitely do something like that. Set it up for the general public, or set it up for your kids, and be able to do that. Yep. In H. Yeah. So you already know what time it is when it comes to that Texas football. Yeah, what the state championship is this. The state championships are this weekend. So yeah, yeah. One of the teams that I've covered throughout the season is actually playing in it. The Randall Lions. They've got that big young sir playing for them too. So, man, I'd like to invite you to watch some of my other videos. I think they would definitely help you in terms of just kind of starting from scratch with how to get into doing like video editing and how to set up your timelines, how to add your music, how to cut things on the beat, things of that nature. To kind of be able to help you to hone in exactly what you want to come across the screen while you're doing some of your film breakdowns. Yeah, how to mark off your beats, how to add music, all of that stuff, and then also with how to be able to go in and add highlights over the players that you want to be able to focus on while you're doing your teaching. So, yeah, I've got quite a few of those kinds of videos. As a matter of fact, a lot of those edits and stuff that I do are kind of based on that. I'm gonna say football, track, basketball. I actually did my first lacrosse game, which was crazy, and I'm talking about actually shooting it and kind of doing some post edit work. I mean, it was for a live broadcast too. Let's see. You say you got a student that plays for North Shore. Oh, okay, okay, I'm in Houston, so I know all about North Shore. So as far as this, like I said, and, feel free to hit me up. I mean, you can inbox me if you got some specific questions as well. Same name on pretty much all the platforms. So I'm not like Coach said, I'm not hard to find. But as far as on this color grade, if you shoot in any kind of raw or log format, then DaVinci is an excellent program to be able to do your color grades for it. To be able to go in and get that footage, transferred from the that original format to be able to really kind of maximize your footage out. So um, it's kind of looking at where I am now. If you look, you can see where the overall exposure is on this flat image, and this is what a raw image looks like. This is actually in B raw, so this is 6K B raw. But very first, one of the things that I do to get into a Rec 709 look, which is like your broadcast friendly format, is I just go in and increase my contrast and my color balance, and then also I increase my contrast. I open my contrast out so you can get exposures in your highs, your mids, and your lows, and make sure that you're not clipping on either side. And then after that, I'll do a color balance based on what's actually being presented on the screen. Um, then after I do that, I'll go ahead and bump up that saturation, and for the most part, that will take care of um, all of my primary corrections. Your secondary corrections would be like when you're going in to fix some very specific things. if you're going to isolate areas, if you're going to mask out areas, if you're getting ready to do anything with skin tones, things of that nature. So, like I said, this first set is going to all be just primary corrections. White balance, any noise reduction, but I'll always turn it off until the end. But just your overall exposure, your white balance, your color balance, your saturation, your contrast, your details, for sharpness of your image. You kind of want to get all of those things situated and worked out up front. And this is before you do any kind of like look creations or adding any LUTs or anything. It's almost not so much as it's backdooring it, because if you could always throw a LUT in there or do like a color space transform and quickly get to that Rec 709 look, which is basically what you saw in your camera when you were shooting. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna add, and I'm one of those. I pretty much do everything on individual nodes, and I label everything. For me, it's the best way to be able to stay organized. We've got this clip. We've got this clip. And I think I'm going to just save this one for when I go in and show how to use the HSL qualifier, where I can show you how to be able to pull out just the skin tones. We got this clip here, and we've got this clip, and this clip. So just to do a real basic one, I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do one on this one. I mean, just looking at it, you can see that the tones in there are just really green. Hold on, let me see something real quick. Yep. All right. So, like I said, first thing, these are all primary corrections. So we've got our primary corrections first. I'm going to go Option S, Alt S if you have Windows, but I'm going to Option S, Option S, Option S. And so this is going to be so that I can make individual adjustments. This first one, I'm going to use it for my anything exposure related. The next one, I'm going to use color balance. And I do my color balance before I actually start putting saturation on, because there's no reason to bump up your saturation. You got to do a crazy amount of color balance. So I like to try to get the colors balanced first on this flat image before I start doing anything else. Then on my next one, it's going to be saturation. Then my next node that I do is I'm going to say contrast and detail. All right. And that really, for the most part, is going to be it. There's going to be a lot of work that goes in those 4 nodes right there alone. I'm going to say, I like my white balance on here, but, and right now there's not going to really be anything in here that is, that's white for me to be able to look at. Let me see here for a second. Yeah. It won't be really anything in there that's going to be white for me to look at. Let me check the live and make sure we're still good. Okay, yeah, so we're still good. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I like to use the S-curve to come in and get my first initial exposure look. One, because, you can look and see without tearing your image up too much, like where your exposure really lies. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put my waveform here. Now remember, I have the exposure node is selected right now. Okay, good deal. Yeah, and then also on Instagram, you can go to JCurtisMedia, and I spend more time on there. Because, man, I actually, because I create content for a lot of athletes just here locally. I've got probably 15 Twitter accounts, that I actually manage. And so I'm very rarely on there, like checking out inboxes. It's typically, I'm doing content for an athlete, and then we get it uploaded and sent up. But on Instagram, those instant messages or direct messages typically will get to you pretty quick. So yeah, it's JCurtisMedia on Instagram. Um, so yeah, here on this exposure, like I said, I was just showing you here on the exposure what we're going to use. We're going to use our S curve, or just curves, but we're going to make an S curve using our curve. One thing you can do, and I like to kind of do it manually instead of grabbing it that way. Okay, all right, good deal. Look, yeah, just hit me up on Instagram, and then on Twitter, and I'll check it. So the first thing I'm going to do is let me make sure my scope is on. We got our waveform scope. To me, this is kind of low, but because I know the time of day of this shot, I think I'm good for now. Just gonna kind of come over here, just pick a point on your curve, and then just start bringing it up some. Because remember, the contrast is gonna come from the information that's in between these 2 points as we are building an S curve. So then the same thing here, you'll begin to see what I'm talking about. See how I grabbed that point, but it's still at a diagonal. But as I begin to bring this down, it begins to form that little S. You know, the more I pull it over, the more the less or the more darker that image is going to get, because it's just I'm pulling those shadows down, 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 down. All right, and then if I begin to come over this way, that begins to lift those shadows up and open them up more, which is ultimately what we want. But we just want to be able to increase the the overall visibility of this image. It was a flat image, so now we're opening it up more. Now here's a point, and just for your information, these points are going to lock that exposure in right there. So at this point, you can look here and see the how that curve is beginning to take shape. Now, if I bring that up some, you see what I'm saying? I can bring that up some, or I can pull this down. But you see how as it goes from here up to this first point, there's not a lot of space in there. So that's one way you can be able to tell. Then when you look at your waveform, you can look and see how close it is to that zero barrier mark, right? Which at this point, we're actually not clipping, but I don't like the look and I don't like the overall darkness of the image. So I'm going to add some more room in that shadow area so we can make sure we're good to go once we begin to do some other things to this, all right? And it's not about perfecting it right now, but you can get a really good looking image just by adding contrast to it because it's a flat image, all right? So right here, we've got it open, and then there we go. Now we've got a good little S curve here. I like it. And so now I'm gonna come in over here on my color wheel. You see how this on my scope, I can kind of tell where the majority of the information, the pixel information is on the scope, which is right up in here. And so I want to open it up with some more shadow. Okay. All right. Good deal. Good deal. Now I'm going to click on my original. Let's add another node, and we are going to call that white balance. Now, how am I going to white balance this? Honestly, the eyeball test. Because I don't really have anything in here that's white. So I'm going to use kind of an eyeball test, but I'm also going to come over here to my offset. And I'm going to turn my parade scope on. And now, when I look at this, you can see that when it comes to where the accumulation of pixels for the images are, look at how much red is down here. And then look at how much green is here. Look at how much blue is here. Now, when you look at this overall image, you can tell that, it's got a lot of green in it, right? You can see that green, right? If you can't see the green, chat, let me know. But, yeah, you can see that this is pretty heavy green. So if you can use your offset, now remember, the offset wheel is going to do like an overall change. It's like if you say blue, it's going to pull everything blue, either up or down. All right. Now, but if you go into the gain and you make adjustments to the blue, it's only going to affect the amount of blue, plus or minus in the highlights. If you go in and you use the blue and the gamma, which are your midtones, it's only going to affect the blue that's in the midtone area. If you go and you make changes to the blue and where the lift for your shadows, it's only going to affect the blue in your shadow area. But if you go to offset, when you start messing with the blue parameter, it's going to impact that over the entire image. All right. And so right now, what I want to do is I want to balance my entire image. Okay, so I'm only going to mess with what I see in the offset. And this is just what's going to start it off. Okay, so I'm going to bring my greens down some, and you can even look at the chart. I mean, look at the scope. You see, look at the scope. You can see here, it's not affecting only one part of the image. It's affecting that entire. It's affecting the green data of that entire image, right? So when I begin to look at the scope, I'm looking at where the green, like some more of the green highlights are. I'm looking at where the red highlights. I'm looking at where the blue highlights are. You see how the blue is all the way at the 384 line, and you see that the green is below it and the red is below it. That's the reason why now you're getting that overall hint of blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that blue down in the offset, and then you're going to begin to see just how it is, the image begins to balance out, right? So I'm pulling it down. I want to pull it down all the way to where I see that green is, right? Right about there. And you see how that image begins to change right now already? Like already. Okay. Now, I'm going to raise up. I'm going to increase my red, my overall red. And look at that. So this is a good way for you to be able to white balance, because if your red, your green, and your blue, if all those levels are balanced and they have the same amount of information, then you'll be perfectly white balanced. All right. So we went from, let me come over here. Okay, there we go. All right. So we went from our flat image so far, our flat image, all the way to an image that now we have our exposure's been corrected, and then we fixed our white balance. See, we don't have, we're not having too much blue, too much green, or too much red. So now this right here is a great starting point to me. And when I look at the exposure, yeah, it does. Overall, it definitely does look a little bit overexposed. But remember, when I said we first started out, let me come back over to my waveform. This is already kind of low. We're talking about at the highest level of the exposure, the midtones are not even at 300. Now, there is a chart. It's called the Ansel Adams exposure chart. You can get that chart, and you can actually look and see what we'll say proper acceptable exposures are for different things, as well as for different, skin tones of different people of different ethnic origins. You can look and see where those are supposed to be, because when you look at where the number of pixels or the accumulation of pixels in your image is on your scope, then you know where those midtones should be, and once you make that adjustment, you should be good to go. Which is one of the reasons why you want to try to nail that exposure, in camera as opposed to out, because that's when you can begin to introduce a lot of other stuff. But that's not what this is about. But hopefully that little tip will help. Right now we're at this exposure. Let me come in and make the adjustment. So you see how after we've increased our contrast, we've added more contrast to the image. That brings down the overall exposure, right? We're not even at the 384 line anymore. So what are we going to do? I want to bring up the exposure of the entire image. I want to kind of get it back to where it was initially, but I want to do that with the amount of contrast that we added. That contrast is going to make it a little darker, So here we are, and we see we still have a good bit of room. That's about where we were. And even watch this. So here's a contrast. You see how expanding that out? We're getting more and more of the detail that we're pulling out of that image, right? And we're still not clipping in any way. We're still not clipping. So that being the case, let's come over here to our parade. So now remember, we let me see. I'm looking here. We still got a little more hint of that blue, but now it's time to color balance. I think we got a great looking start point. Like I said, from where we were to where we are now. Let's come over here where our white balance was. This is where it was. This is what the original image was. And so what that would mean is that, hey, the white balance that we used to shoot this, it wasn't the greatest, right? But that's one of the benefits of being able to shoot in RAW. You can make some changes to it pretty easily. All right. So now we'll turn that back on, and we're going to come over to our color balance. Then we're going to look at our parade scope, because this is going to let us know, kind of where we are color-wise. So when I look at this, when I look at the accumulation of pixels over on this left side of the scope for the blue information, and then I look at it for the right, which one do you think has the most information? Because that green, they're both right about the same. That, in our red channel, it is not, it's probably a little bit more, but even on the green, I can see that there are parts of it. Now, you don't want to be confused by, say, like we see this part over here where it looks like just a bright spot. That's what you see in this area up here. That's where that's coming from, okay? But for the most part, they're all kind of balanced. We could go into our HDRs, but I don't want to do that or take you there. I think that staying here is fine. Okay, yeah, staying here is fine. But I am gonna add a little bit more red to my highlights. All right. Yeah. There we go. Just a smidge. And you can even see it helps to pull those greens out a little bit more as well. So now, here on our, let me look at the shadows. Okay, the shadows for the red, the green, the blue, they all look like they're right there about the same. And I like that. I like the exposure that I've gotten right now. Not exposure, I like the color balance that I have right now. But let me see. Could you see that entire deal as well? Let me check this out real quick. Okay, yeah. Okay, I didn't know if you could actually see that when I did a full screen on, but this is where we are. This is where we were before, and then this is where we are now. So we've made this change to this image already just by making adjustments to, just by adding contrast, fixing our white balance, and then actually doing a color balance, right? So now we're getting ready to come over to our saturation, right? We're coming over to our saturation node, and I'm going to turn on my vector scope so that I can make sure that we're not, we're not in any danger of oversaturation right now. So while I'm on here, I'm going to go ahead and start adding some juice into my saturation. Look at that. Oh, yeah. Look at that. See, it's coming alive now, right? Yep, it's coming alive now, right? You see that? Yeah. So right now, that's a huge difference. We've added some saturation. You look at this. You can see it just brought a lot more life to it, You go Option D, that'll let you see your before and back. Now this right here, Shift D, will let you turn that node off only. There we go. Option D. Yep. My bad. Not Shift D, Command D. Yeah, Command D will let you turn that node on and off. So this is with the node off, and this is with the node on. As far as the saturation nodes, I just turned the saturation node on and off. I'm turning it off again so you can kind of see, it looks good. It looks real. It looks, it looks like this is something that you literally could see if you were out there. But this right here, that's what looks very real. You've got good saturation, we've got good contrast, we've got good exposure, we've got a great white balance, and that's it. So now I'm gonna come over here. I want to add a little more sharpness to it. So I'm gonna come in. I like going with a 1.1 as a litmus test type deal. Yeah, I like that. And then I'll come over here to my detail. We're gonna say about 25. That's just gonna help to give us, a little more sharpness in our actual image. There we go. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I look this. This is what I like. To me, it looks good. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to do a right click on it. Let me hit my gallery button so you can see what this is. I'm gonna do a right click, and then we're just gonna grab that still. Now, if I wanted, now let's say I had more of these clips from this particular project in the bin. Now that we've actually went in, we've done all of our corrections here. We've got it exactly the way that we want it. When you do a right click on that, we can actually literally highlight any other clip, and we can go in and pull it out. But as you can see, it's not going to work for this one because this is a different project. So I can already tell you right now, completely different white balance, and several other things, completely different color balance as well. You see, same thing here. But if we had other projects from here, then we'd be able to come in and use this, and it would become a standard. So, but what we'll do is we're just going to use this to grab a screen grab. So, and how you do that, you can go right click and go to export, and then you can save that particular screen grab as an image. So that way you can just be able to, if you just, let's say you just want to be able to post it on social media or something like that. There you go. Boom. Just like that. So now, again, we're going to do the exact same thing here. Now we've got a person. How many nodes we have last time? It's like, what, maybe 4 or 5? You know what? I'll tell you what. Well, no, I'll come back and add a LUT later on. But you can see we got all the way to here. We didn't use a LUT, right? We did not use a LUT. We just went in. We took our raw file. We added, so we corrected. We did a manual white balance on it just to get that, just to get the overall colors for the overall scene balance, to get our actual white balance, to make all of our colors true, and then we increased our contrast, and we did a color balance and saturation. That just opened up all the information for that image. Now there's still a good bit I'm pretty sure we could go through and do. There's these there, but these are, like I said, these are all just the primary corrections. Contrast, saturation, detail, white balance, exposure. Those are the primary corrections. We'll get into doing some secondary corrections later, but for right now, I just want to show you how you can take any of your footage and be able to bring it in. And for a lot of these, for the most part, these are the basic nodes that you will need for basically any correction. Okay, it doesn't have to be super difficult or tiring, but you can just go in. As a matter of fact, let's do this. I'm going to erase all of that, and I'm going to show you even more. Okay. I'll bring it back because remember we have it saved over here. So, but for right now, we're back at square one, right? Let's add 2 nodes. We're going to say exposure, and then we're going to say color balance. All right, so watch this. Same image we just got over here. We could very easily come right here and just go contrast. All right. And we're going to still have the same issue that we had a minute ago, which was the overtone of, let me pull this up. The overtone of greens and blues. That was the case when we looked that up. Just greens and blues. Where's my scope at? My scope disappeared. I wonder if it. I think it might be trying to throw it over here on my iPad. But anyway, um, that's fine. So yeah, right now we've got. We were just able to get our. We were able to open that image out some just by adding contrast manually, and then over here, if we can just bump up that saturation. You can throw it all the way up to 100 if you want. Now, let's do this though. We definitely still would have to do something with our white balance because it's just the white balance is not the way it needs to be. So here's one way you can do it, but let me add a quick node because I like to keep my nodes separated. I'm gonna say white. Look, this is that anal part right here. We're gonna say white balance. There's a couple different tools you can use. We don't really have anything to pick because I don't see anything that's white. The clouds back there might be white, but we can adjust our temperature. You see that? So look at that. We just adjusted our temperature, our color temperature, and like I said, this is a raw file, so it makes it a little easier to do it like that. You can see here, we pull it back that way. It kind of goes back to what it originally was, but as we come over here, bam. So look at that. Now remember, we had this one over here. Let's see how far off we are. This is with no color balancing or anything. This is just pure, we've gone in and we've increased our saturation. We've increased our contrast. So now we have more than just this, the flat image, right? Now, if we actually come over, I'm going to reset this to kind of put that back to where it was. Now, remember, we can come over here and we can just use our offset. You can use your parade scope, and then you can use your offset to look and see what the overall tone is. We can see here now that our reds are way down. You see where this is at 250, but the greens and blues are kind of topping out over here at 386, right? So, and then the blues are actually more than the greens. So the greens are right under the 384 mark, and the blues are well over the 384 marks. We can even see how we can balance. Now remember, this is the overall image. This is not making changes to any color level at the highs, the mids, or the lows. This is for the overall image. So let's bring this white balance into let's make this correct by making all of our colors balance out at the same level as close as we possibly can, and that is going to give you your correct white balance. Okay. So I'm going to bring those blues down some, then I'm going to bring those greens up some to match up with it. Then we're going to bring those reds up. Look at how that image has begun to change. Okay, now putting a fine-tooth comb on it, where else are we? Okay, we need to bring those. And this is where you can really kind of eyeball this, but check out the greens. So now, as I begin to bring those greens down some, and bring those reds up some more. All right, now my blues, it definitely still has some blue overtone in there. Let me bring those blues down. See, right now we are balancing this image out. Look at that. It doesn't. See, we've almost just about lost that blue overcast. Right? Now that's too. You can see that was too much green. So let me bring this back up. Okay. And then when you get ready to go in and start doing some of your specific, areas where you need to fix the color cast, that's where you go in and do your lift gamma gain, your highs, your mids, your lows. So just keep this in mind. When it comes to the offset, whatever change you make using offset is going to do that for the entire image. But when you go to your lift, gamma, and gain, those changes are only going to make or have an impact on those areas. So if you come over to the gain and you take your blues and you just drop them, you're not pulling it out. You haven't pulled all the blues out of the midtones and shadows. You've only pulled them out of the highlights, right? But if you come over here to the offset, what's that, 22.68, so I don't forget. If you come over here to the offset and you just drop them down like that, you're taking the blues out of the entire image. So right now we only are using the red and green channel. Okay, it was at 22.68, so I wouldn't forget. So yeah, but it takes all three colors for you to be able to have the that balanced image. So right now I'm just kind of looking at here. Let's see, I'm gonna bring that up a little bit. Okay, that's good. We're gonna bring this down just a smidge, Okay, now we're gonna bring our red channel up some in our highlights. Okay, good. And then also in the overall image, because it's just still a little bit under. And then we're gonna bring down our blues and our midtones some. And it's gonna start balancing out. You can see the difference. You can see the difference, as you continue to go through channel by channel. This is what it is. And a lot of times, it's going to kind of just be left up to you and your individual taste. Now, when I look at this right now in full screen, I can still see, a little more green than what I want to see. And it's like, if I'm outside and I'm looking at these trees, it's not going to look this green. That's just the reality of it. It's not going to look that green. Not to my natural eye. It's just not going to look that green. So let's see here. We've got color here. Oof, let me look. Y'all didn't tell me I was still on the saturation deal, but here we go. Now let me put it back on color. Let me increase that saturation using my color node. Like I told you, I don't really like to get my nodes and stuff mixed up, because I like to try to stay organized with it. It just helps, because when you want to go in and you want to say, I don't want as much saturation. Well, if you go to your color node and that's not where you made your saturation changes at, now you got to hunt through a gazillion nodes to try to figure out where you actually made that change. That'll be frustrating to you, especially in the eyes of progress. So, hey, look at here. If you got any questions, feel free. Like I said, I'm not in a hurry. I'm not gonna try to rush through it. If you got a question over anything in here, just like I said, feel free to fire that question away. Now again, like when I'm looking over here now, we've made several changes, but this is where we started out at. I'm gonna turn these off one by one, as a matter of fact. Okay, so this is where we started out at, and we came in first, and we made. Let me pull my waveform out. So we came over first, and we did our exposure. All right, but you could see the blue and green overtones in the image. So then we fixed our white balance. Problem fixed. Okay. Probably could even use a little more exposure by opening this out. Yeah, we probably could, huh? And then, and I am looking at the actual scope. And so then after that, we came in, we added some saturation. That right there is what really has given us our natural look, So we went from here to here. Now, and again, like I said, tell you what, let me do this. I'm gonna come over here. So now no matter where you go in this image, no matter what part that you're looking at, you should be able to get a consistent look. I'm just going to, just because. So now we can look here, we can see what this image is. What the results from that one was, and we can also come and see what the results from that one was. You take your pick. Which one looks the most realistic to you? The other one we put a little more work into. This one was a real quick and dirty, look at possibilities. You know what I'm saying? So at the most, I just wanted to show you that you can get very, very close to what you're looking for just by simply opening up your exposure and adding some saturation and contrast. We didn't even add any contrast to it. We can come over here and say, I'm going to add some contrast. Oh, no, we take that back. We had a lot of contrast. You can even come over here and still, you can add some more. If you want to open that exposure up a little bit more, boom, start pushing your highlights up some. You're not clipping on either side, on the highlights or the shadows. You can do the same thing here. Look at that. So yeah, there's a good bit. And here you can really kind of see where those, man, boy, that OCD will get you. You can really see here as far as like on your greens and on here, I can see that they're like those greens are up a little bit. Let me bring down my reds in the shadows. That'll help to balance this thing out even more. And my blues, my shadows are, there's a lot of blue in the shadows. I'm gonna take some of that out. There we go. Yeah. See, you can push and pull and do quite a bit when it comes to your color grade. I know a lot of people say, well, you go in and you up your game, you up your shadows, and you adjust your middle. Yeah, you can, but that's only one part. If you just do that on a flat image and then throw a LUT on there, I mean, that's that. But you can do this and still do exactly. See, a lot of people get what LUTs are for mixed up because they've gotten so popular on social media that everybody thinks, oh, you throw a LUT on it and that's it. But no, it's like a LUT really is supposed to just give you, kind of help you to be able to see what things would look like if you were trying to create a certain look. But realistically, you can literally create your own LUT to get a certain kind of look. Okay, tell you what, for example, let's do this real quick. I'm going to say right now, I'm going to show you a trick. I'm going to call this desaturation, right? Then I'm going to call this look. This is not a lookup table. It's not a look, but this will be just something you can be able to use for if you want to create a special look, right? So here's a node I'm going to call desaturation. So what am I going to do? Because remember, information is passed from one node to the next, right? I'm going to pull all the saturation out, which is going to give us a black and white image, right? Now I'm going to come over here to our look. And so if we want to think about, let's see, what two colors do we want to think about to create a look? Do we want to have like orange highlights and blue shadows, and then somewhere around the regular skin tone for mids? But this is how you can create a look. So when you think about a movie like The Joker, where you see a lot of like greens and reds and greens and oranges and things like that, this is where you can be able to create that on your own. Or when you say, I want to create a LUT, this is kind of how you get there. Tell you what, let's do this. We already know we have some green in here, so let's throw some orange in our highlights. I'm gonna come over here to this look, and I'm going to go over, up, just gonna kind of gradually add some oranges to our taste. All right, a little heavy on the orange, and then over in our shadows, let's kind of try to get over here to that teal. That's always gonna be a popular deal. Okay, there we go. We've got orange highlights and we've got teal in our shadows. So now for the midtones where skin tones would lie, or where those middle gray areas would be, let's just kind of go up just a little bit. Bam, right there. That's good enough. So we've just, you may not think it right now, but we literally have just started the foundation of a look. Okay. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to turn my, I'm going to just turn that desaturation node off. And now you can see what it looks like, right? But now watch this. We're going to come over here to our key. We're going to put that all the way on 0. Okay. You just put that all the way on 0. All right. Okay. Now this is where we were with everything. I mean, that looks pretty doggone orange. I don't remember us having. Oh, I was gonna say, why does it look like that? I must have just turned. Okay, there we go. I was gonna say, why does it still look like that? All right, I made the adjustment on the desaturation node, but now we're gonna come over here to our look node. We're gonna put that on 0, the one where we just added the orange and the highlights and kind of that tealish, greenish blue in the shadows. Now I'm going to put that. There we go. So I just turned the gain completely off, right? So now we want a nice subtle look of orange in our highlights and the teal color in our shadows and the natural skin tone in our midtones, right? So I've just put that all the way on 0. You can begin to dial that in according to your taste. So let's begin to bring it up. Keep on bringing it up, bringing it up, bringing it up. And this is all the LUT is doing. Now, of course, there are some other intricate things that the LUT is doing for you to control certain limits so that you can't jack up the image or whatever, but you've done everything. You've done all the hard work. So let's begin to bring that up some more. We want that orange tealish kind of look. We're at 0.27. And it should be very subtle. It shouldn't take over your image. That's cheesy as I don't know what. So we're at 0.333, right? I'm going to take this so you can be able to see the difference. You see that? You see that? You see how we just added the orange and teal look to our image, and it's tasteful. It's not, where it's overdone or it looks where it could be like crazy fake. But there's all kinds of stuff that we could do to this now that we've done that. And guess what? Here, let's reset it. And then let's come in and turn this back on. Let's get us another look. Oh, I should have kept that there. Why y'all didn't tell me to just leave it there so we can be able to compare it? You know what? Let me see. Let me see how good that. Okay, we're back. We're back. All right, there we go. So now I'm gonna turn this one off, and let's create another look, and then we'll just kind of compare the looks. But you'll see, cause we'll call that look 2. All right, let's put together two other colors for our highlights. We'll say we're gonna say orange, and then we'll come over here in our shadows and we'll say green. Yeah, we'll come over here and give us some nice natural skin tones in the middle, because if somebody walked in there, we want them to look like a human, right? So now, we've done that. Now we've got our, we have our actual look that we want. We want the orange and greenish look, so we're going to turn this right here. Okay, there we go. So now we'll come in here. I'm going to go back to my key input. Let's put this one at 0.25. So look at that. I mean, like I said, it's not overbearing, but it's definitely something that you can, be able to use, right? This is without it. This is with our custom look that we just built. This is the regular, like Rec 709 look, like what you see with your natural eyes, and then this is our actual LUT or look, that we just went in and created ourselves. It's, what I'm saying? So there's all kinds of course, different looks that you can have. You can do some adjacent colors. You can do some complementary colors to be able to build whatever the actual look that you want. And it's just kind of all up to you. But first things first, knock out those primary changes, and then you're good to go. All right. So here, let's come over here to the next one. And this is what I'm going to say. Well, for those of you that are here, we start off with the very beginning, but on this one, I'm going to go ahead and label these off so we can be a little more efficient on the next couple ones. Then I'm going to say white balance. I'm going to say exposure, color balance, saturation. We'll say detail. How about that? Let's see. Okay, and then we'll say color balance. And then we'll say detail. Oops, no, saturation, my bad. All right, so we've got our original, we've got our color balance, we've got our saturation, we've got our exposure, our contrast, we've got our detail. These are all of our primary corrections right here. So first things first, let's look at our scope. Okay, we can look at and find where the actual, like, where the large number of pixels are, so we can be able to find out, what's true to what we're looking at. So when you look at your scope, I'm telling you now, when you look at your scope, go ahead and take the playhead and start moving it. Now, while you're moving it, I want you to look at your scope and your image and look and see where your actual image lies in your scope, because that's what you want to be able to really be able to have control of as far as your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights. When you look at the very top of this, that's not even the image. You know what I'm saying? That's where those windows and stuff are back there. Those blown out windows, that's what that is. But when you look here, as I'm moving the playhead, you can see within the scope, wherever you see that movement, that hint of movement, now you can look at that and see at the top of that, that's where your highlight is, that's where your midtones are, and that's where your shadows. That's what you're controlling when you do your lift, gamma, and gain. Okay? Did everybody get that? Did everybody get that? Okay, so that's where your lift, gamma, and gain is at. It's where the accumulation of those pixels, where you have the most pixels of your subject that's moving. That's what you're actually looking for. So right now, I'm not gonna, I know that those midtones are not up at the 640 level. This subject's midtones are down at the 384 level. So when I begin to increase or work on the subject, I know exactly where his midtones are, right? Now, for a subject with this skin complexion, I would need to look on the Ansel Adams chart to make sure, or I can use my vector scope to make sure that, his skin tones are proper. They're not overly saturated. They're not undersaturated, and also we have the right exposure on the midtones. We can also put a power window around it and then use the exposure and the vector scope to see if everything is good with that as well. So let's do this. I'm just going to go ahead and just do a couple. You guys feel free to ask me any questions. Feel free to ask any questions. This is just an open question live. Hopefully it's providing some value and you're learning something. We just got to get back to that. So I'm gonna come over here. The very first thing I'm gonna do is let's go ahead and increase our contrast in this image. Let me grab me a little. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So yeah, I feel good. I feel pretty good about that level of exposure, and I think I'm gonna try to open it up even more and just kind of watch my scope. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There we go. Okay. Let me pull out all the scopes. I know where that. I know where that deal is now. It actually. Yeah. There we go. All right. Now we got our color balance. super red. I know he's not that red. It's all right. Hmm. So yeah, that's not working. Trying to make it a little less quiet in here. There we go. All right. Here we go. Add a little bit more contrast. What? Okay, hold up. There we go. See, I can see. The red channels are up a good bit. There we go.
Rather be alone in my zone writing poems. When I get in, I take a shower, read a book and feel empowered. Smoking on that sour got me counting down the hours, thinking of all the shit that they could do but won't allow us. Then I
said you needed space, said you needed more time to think, so you went away. But you still would stay in my dreams. Now you're back for more. Why you in my reality? My head closed the door, even though my heart just won't leave. That was then, can't go back. Hurt so bad, had to block out the memory. If we try again, start from scratch. You wanna pick up where we left off, but you've been gone away. You've been gone away so long. Since you've been gone away, you've been gone away so long. I forgot your middle name, I forgot your birthday. You still wear cologne the same, like it in the worst way. You've been gone away. Since you've been gone away, you've been gone away. 50, 11 days, 50, 11 days, 50, 11. I lost count of all of the weeks that you have your way. Wouldn't pick a fight when you'd leave. Now you're back for more. about your birthday, your favorite position. Do we still have chemistry? Yeah. Since you've been gone away so long. 아침에 눈을 뜨자마자 느낀 설레임 Blossoming 향기로운 달콤한 햇볕에 노인거리는 꽃 같아 다 보고 싶지 않는데 말하고 싶지 않아 빨리 사그라들까봐 어떡해 그날부터인 것 같아 내게 가까이 다가와 좋아한다고 말해 꽃 내 맘에 피어가네 Oh blossoming in my heart 난 이 마음 멈추려고 안 할래 그럴래 우리 집 가로등 불빛 아래 너와 나 Blossoming 부드러운 매혹적인 새빨간 roses 피어가 yeah 한 걸음씩 가까이만 더 빛을 마주 보고서 들키고 싶지 않아 어떡해 지금 이 순간이 멈추리 가까이 다가와서 아름답게 서서히 꽃 내 맘에 피어가네 Oh blossoming in my heart 난 이 마음 멈추진 못할 거야 그럴 거야 꽃 내 맘에 피어가네 Oh blossoming in my heart yeah 난 이 마음 멈추진 못할 거야 그럴 거야
It's not my fault. You've been lying, saying that I took away your peace. Drowning by yourself, now you wanna blame me. Like you have no options. I ain't take your options. Nah, I'm not the problem. Man, that's on you, yeah. You've been terrorizing me, yeah, I'm always wrong. I knew you lost your mind when you dropped that bomb. Girl, are you crazy? Yeah, you must be crazy. I've been thinking lately
Okay, guys. Hey, look, that's those clips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clips with yeah, those are 6 clips with just primary correction. So that's your exposure, your white balance, your color balance, your detail, contrast, and that's pretty much it. That's how every edit pretty much should be started out. You go in and make sure that you got all your levels correct, so that way when you want to apply your look, you can be able to do it without having to worry about, is it going to be over this or over that, because it just won't look realistic. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean that pretty much is it. Now look, if you have any questions at all, and I've made myself available, to just be able to answer questions. So yeah, if you have any questions at all, feel free to holler at your boy and fire them out. I mean, this thing is one of those that, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do a lot of different things, and you can often get to the same result, but doing it a different way. And so everybody kind of has their preference. I mean, don't let anybody tell you that, this way is the best or their way is the best. It's just the best for them. But creatively speaking, you can do whatever you want to do. And then also, what you feel like is the best or looks right is right. That's how I see it. So yeah, look, if you got any questions for me, feel free to send them out to me. JCurtisMedia on all platforms. So if you want to inbox me a question, or if you say, hey, I want you to check this out, let me know what I think, what my opinion is. I'm gonna repeat exactly what I just told you, and then we'll say, okay, now let's dive in together and see how we can be able to get you in a place where you feel comfortable with the output. So yeah, just keep grinding. That's about it. Keep grinding. I mean, this thing takes a while for you to just get it. There's not a tutorial on the planet that you can watch to make you be where you ultimately are going to be. That's going to take not only some mess ups, but it's going to take some self innovation. It's going to take some project innovation. It's going to take some you just getting out there and saying, what is it? How do I do this? And then you making your own way. That means you actually creating a standard. And somebody will look at your stuff and say, man, how in the world did he pull that off? Like, what is he doing to get it like that? I'm doing it just like that. But there's just things that go unspoken, unsaid for everybody. And I think that's pretty much across all disciplines. It's color grading. I mean, I can tell you I've taken classes for it. I've done online tutorials for it. I've studied on, at YouTube University for it. But also, I mean, I used to study light. Light, color, textures, all that, just through school. So, my perspective on a lot of different things, I started out in 3D, yeah, but in architecture. But it was still a deal of studying light, how things are impacted and affected by light. Color was true. Textures, everything mathematically, period. So, again, like I said, if you have a question, feel free to reach out to me. I'm not hard to find at all, like the ball coach says. And then we'll just take it from there. We'll go from there. So look, happy grading, happy editing, happy shooting, all of that. It's your boy, JT. Oh yeah, look, if you stop by and you found any kind of value, or you just like hanging out with your boy and want to be able to be reminded when something else new pops up, feel free to jump on in here. And I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. We had like 700 subscribers. That is crazy to me. Like, I remember being at like 200 and something. It was like, man, we're gonna never get to 1,000. I don't know how long it's gonna take to get there, but I'm thankful for all 700. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's been a while, so, but I think that there's going to always be more people that are just picking up a camera or just getting a hold to some video footage for the first time. And so they're going to need some help. And I think about those things that, I had questions over that I didn't know that I was trying to find out on my own. And sometimes you need something that's kind of structured, So in the tutorials that I put together, kind of put them together in a way that I've learned, and I'm still learning to this day. I mean, I think all the time there's something that pops up and it's like, So, but we're getting better. There's a lot of things we could probably do to help you to save some money so you don't spend it all on this new must-have gear. Look, I'm shooting this on this little 8-bit Canon 90D right now. You know what I'm saying? But I've been able to do some things to be able to get even more value out of it in the stage of this camera where you probably wouldn't want to go buy a Canon 90D. There's too many other cameras that do too many other things conveniently for you that, in this one you have to manufacture for yourself. So, but anyway, hey, I appreciate you guys coming to hang out with your boy, and we're going to see you on the next one. Remember, fire those questions away and, hit that like button and subscribe for me. Let's see you back next time.